Oh, no more time. I'm going to have to do the self and cheetah. So there's a lot of ones in here about the selfing, right? And cheetah. How I wish I could answer them all. But I'm going to start with this self one. Where is that? Somebody had. Okay, can you explain selfing and not selfing, please? So in my mind, there's two forms of selfing. One is what I will call micro self. This is me, it's not anybody else. What I call micro selfing, which is when we identify with thoughts and emotions. When we say when we really, think our thoughts and emotions are me. I am my thoughts and emotions. I am my body. So we have, let's say, identified with those things, right? So that's micro selfing. Macro selfing is along the lines, and you've heard me say, I, me, and mine. It's really, when we're really focused on I, me, and mine, we've really created this whole, let's say, illusory sense of a self that is, we, feel is fixed, stable, not changeable, and not affected by the rest of the world. So it's this idea that there actually is a fixed, stable, unchanging self, right? And there's, if we're to dive more deeply into that, the Buddha, so we've been talking about anatta, not self. So not self, it really is referring to, well, wait, I am not those thoughts. I am not my emotions. I am not my body. There's a body here, but it's not me, right? It's a body, right? There are thoughts here, but it's not me. Thoughts are transient, right? How could they be me if they're coming and going, right? So the Buddha, when asked about the self, if he was asked, what is the self, Venerable One? He actually would never answer that question, because what he was concerned with is what is not self. It's a misnomer. I've seen it on greeting cards, like Buddhist looking for himself or something like that. It's not a teaching of no self, right? He didn't really address that because it had nothing to do with happiness or unhappiness, whether or not there is a self. However, in modern days, we have some useful ways of considering self. And what I'm going to talk about now comes from Rick Hanson, who's a really esteemed neuropsychologist who likes to really expound on the differences between self and person. So we typically think of self as a fixed being that's stable, meaning unchanging. The self I was when I was 5 is the same self that I am now, except bigger. And that it is not really affected by other things. Again, fixed, stable, unchanging. We often consider that word self to mean there's only one self, and that's me, right? And that we also consider a self to be something that we can that's tangible, that we can grasp, some real thing, right? But when we consider really how our lives are, how we live our lives, Rick likes to say that it could be more useful to consider ourselves as persons, right? So a person, we're all persons here in this room. A person, we could say, has a body that endures over time. We know this. It's not a mystery. We have this body. It lasts for some time. We also have a mind that endures, hopefully, over some time. So we have a body and a mind. We have a body and a mind. Why do we need a self, right? I was just reading something by Buddhadasa Bhikkhu, who basically says, you have a body and a mind, why do you need a self? Right? So the mind is easily conditioned over the period of our lifetime. So with conditioned experiences over the course of a life, we might develop a personality. A lot of people think of self as personality. But personality is conditioned over time. And it can be, people can change personalities. Does that mean they've changed their self? Right? So self really, for our purposes, isn't a lot that we pay attention to. What we are not is more important. So, and it could be useful to, instead of focus on self, instead start to consider yourself as a person who changes over time, who's not unchangeable, who is impacted by the world. Also, a person can have many selves, kind of like the compounded eyes of that grasshopper that Mary Oliver writes about. We have many selves, we could be different I could be this Dharma teacher in one place, and then I could be a total goofball in another place, So we have all these different selves. We're very changeable. We could have been really shy some years ago, and then something could happen and we could not be shy, So we're all very changeable. We have many different selves. We're impacted by the outside world. And what endures over time? What endures over time is the body and the mind. Right? Hope that helps.